and his 11 children and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and likewise everything that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Now when the man saw that he could not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please, tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. And from Luke, then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for human beings. And in that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' Now for a while he refused, but later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out, continually coming to me.' And the Lord said, 'Now listen carefully to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find any trust on the face of the earth?'" This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
So I know David preached for me last week, and it was the same text. I changed the title. But you get the same reading. You get a 2-for-1. I have no suggestions to make. I think this parable of Jesus, is talking about what is prayer. And what is prayer? What is prayer supposed to do? What is the importance of prayer? Why does Jesus say that we're to pray always? And I think that this has been taken in a wrong direction by most of Christianity. I think it's easy to see why. And I love Kate's children's sermon because part of it was God knows what's good for us and sometimes what's not good for us. But I think if we take the story at face value, if we read it at sort of a surface level, then it seems to say that God is a God who can be manipulated. In other words, God can be, if you just literally bug the living crap out of God forever, time and time and time and time again, please, 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 please give me, that finally God, like the unjust judge, will say, "Okay, for heaven's sakes, Gary, you get your whatever. Fine. Take it." Can I get my next slide, Kate? This woman is wearing me out. It gives us the impression that God is sort of this distant figure up in the sky who's sort of maybe dozing a little bit and really doesn't have a whole lot of respect and regard for human beings and our desires and our fears and our cares. And I can see why we would take it in that direction. I was listening yesterday to Christian radio. I listen to Christian radio a lot of times as I drive around. A lot of times just because I'm curious what other pastors are saying. I want to hear theologically, I take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, don't really like that, But one thing I heard yesterday, and I can't remember, it was a Turning Point or some kind of ministries out of California, took a verse out of Deuteronomy 8, I believe, and which says, O nation of Israel, you have turned your back on me, so I turn my back on you. And unless you turn your face back towards me, or when you turn your face back towards me, then I will turn my face towards you. And America as a country in the last 2 years apparently has turned its face against God, and God has withdrawn rain, and our rivers are drying up, and all kinds of terrible things are happening in the world. And so what this church is doing is organizing what they hope is 25,000 churches across America. And pastors are urged to call in and get this packet of information. And on January 4th, I believe, or something like that, 25,000 churches are going to have a Return Your Face to God Day. And we're all to say the exact same prayer. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the problem is there's an expectation, isn't there? Because the expectation, explicitly stated by these people, is that if we get 25,000 churches and we all say the exact same prayer at the exact same time, God is somehow obligated to turn his face, her face, back towards us and to do all sorts of things that we want God to do. And I think that is taking this in absolutely the wrong direction. I think this parable is more along the lines of, if you who are evil give your children wonderful things, how much more God? I think that's when we look at it at a deeper level. If you who are evil if this judge, who is a real creep, gives this woman a decision for whatever reason, how much more God? One thing I was thinking about as I mulled over this sermon was, I don't want to discourage anyone from praying to God for something that you need. I can't tell you how many times I asked God, oh God, help me find my car keys. When my battery was dying, I was too busy to go get a new battery. John Hart was kicking off, jump-starting my van over here. And a couple times I'm trying to start my van and it goes, shoot. And I'm like, oh God, please let it start. And I don't know why the universe or God or whatever happens this way, but a lot of times, and it seems like when I'm in the flow of what God wants me to be doing, that it doesn't go shoot, it goes and starts. I don't know why. And I think it's just ingrained into our psyches to ask God, God, please don't let it be cancer. God, please don't let me owe any money on my taxes. God, please start my car. And I wouldn't discourage you from asking for those things, because I do it all the time. Not just because I do it. I think God wants, like Kate's sermon, I think God does want us to make our feelings and our desires and our fears and our aspirations known to God. And I think when it's not, no skin off God's nose, or it's not going to interfere with the interplanetary universe or the space-time continuum, that if I ask for my van to start, there's going to be times when God starts the van. So I wouldn't say that, but as we progress from one level of prayer to a deeper level of prayer, which is why I believe that most of you are here, I think there's a much different meaning to this. And it involves trust. Can I get one more? So this is the one level of prayer, and I say it's gimme, gimme, gimme. Gimme, gimme, gimme. And then there's a deeper level of prayer that I think Jesus is talking about. Because if you're just asking for something, give me my car keys, give me my this, give me my that, how are you to do that continuously? We become like a toddler, asking for just endless things. Is that really the prayer Jesus is talking about? I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a chaplain at Georgetown Hospital, there was a woman in intensive care, and I was the intensive ICU chaplain. African-American woman, probably in her 60s, and she had some type of bacterial infection that was attacking her body. And the doctors had done everything they possibly could. when I would go into her room, the bed was puffed up because they're pumping warm air in there to keep her warm. And her husband sat by the bedside all day praying. She had 2 daughters in their 20s, and they sat by the bedside as well. And they would ask me to come in and pray. And I'll tell you, if you're a chaplain and people are praying for a miracle, they do not want to hear you say, God, please heal Sue, if it be your will. They don't want to hear, if it be your will. Why? You're letting God off. We're bringing you in here for a purpose. You've got this line to God. We need you to use it. Don't say, if it be your will, because you're letting God off the hook. And every time I would walk into this poor woman who was in a lot of pain, being kept alive artificially, her eyes would get so big and she would stare at me as if begging, please do something to help them let me go. And the doctors, most of the young residents would come to me, chaplain, what can you do about this? Can you please convince the family that this is cruel? And ethically, I can't do that. I can't do that. And so I would just go in and spend time with them and ask them questions. And the husband was, and I don't judge because, if Margaret was in the bed too, I think I'd probably be doing the same thing. And I'd probably be just praying for a miracle. And I think that's okay. I think that's all right. But at some point in the process, some transformation has to occur. I went in there one day and the woman's mother, African-American lady, probably in her 90s, and a Howard Thurman sermon reminded me of this. It reminded me of my own encounter with this. Was sitting in a chair in the corner, a very prim and proper lady, Georgetown lady, if you know what I mean. And the husband and the daughters left to go to the cafeteria. And I stayed in the room with the daughter and with the mother. And the mother said, I'm very glad that you have stayed and that it is just you and me. She said, the tension, the fear, the foreboding, the sadness in this room is killing not just my daughter, it is killing all of us. And a couple of days ago, I decided that I must do something about it. And so I took several hours, and I started at the beginning, the day that I gave birth to my daughter. I went through that day that she was born, through kindergarten, losing her first tooth, going through school and going to college, first boyfriends, the day she was married, the day she gave birth to the first of my 2 beautiful granddaughters. Everything about her and her beautiful spirit I shared with the Lord. And I brought the Lord up on all of the different circumstances that have led us to this present condition. And then I said, now, Lord, you know everything that I do. Do the best with it that you can. I have no suggestions to make. Can I get one more, Kate? This is a deeper level of prayer that involves trust. It's not easy, but it's the prayer that goes from, God, please heal Grandpa, to, God, I'm a finite being that doesn't have all the answers, but I trust that you are an infinitely loving and compassionate presence, and that you will always do what is best in the situation, even if it doesn't satisfy my immediate desires and wants. This is a picture of me and my stepson Winston, by the way, over in Driggs, Idaho, walking from what was my dad's house down to the river. And that picture just struck me, from gimme to dialogue. As I start to wrap up here, Kate, can I get one more? From gimme from Gimme to dialogue. This is the prayer I think that is called trust. And it's what I think we all aspire to. Prayer changes us. Prayer is not about changing God's mind. And you can ask God a million different times. I don't know whether that works or not. Maybe I will find out one day. And God or Jesus will say, Charlie, you got that totally wrong. I was waiting for you to bug the living hell out of me to get that skateboard or whatever. But I don't think that is the purpose. I think it is when we let go of that gimme and release control over situations and say, God, I trust you, and I'm going to enter into the flow of what your ultimate plan is, whatever it may be, because I trust you. Maybe that's why the difficulty of doing that, maybe why the last line in this parable is, when the Son of Man returns, will he find any trust on the face of the earth?